Some people have criticized your marriage, saying you married an older man for wealth and influence. How do you convince them they are wrong because they seem right to all of us? That was Jade's insensitive question that caught Karolina off guard. Why will a fellow woman choose to be so brutal with her words to another in front of a great crowd? Well, it seemed Jade never saw what was coming, and in a matter of minutes, Karolina's response shocked everyone and left Jade speechless. What did she say? Jade Johnson, a woman known for her public shows, interviews, and contributions to the media space, announced in early February that she would be interviewing the respected Karoline Leavitt. Leavitt is a young rising star with experience in diverse fields, whose expertise caught the interest of many. She is a dedicated workaholic, with feats only a few females her age could only dream of achieving. The world knew she was making waves, and they had questions to ask. They knew they did not have the privilege of meeting her one-on-one, but an interview with someone like Jade Johnson at the other side of the chair would satisfy their desires. The grand hall stretched wide, its 1,000 seats arranged in perfect symmetry, each row curving slightly to ensure every person had an unobstructed view of the stage. A soft golden glow bathed the room, emanating from chandeliers high above, their crystals shimmering like frozen raindrops caught in eternal suspension. The navy blue walls absorbed the crowd's whispers. At the front, the stage was elevated, with a polished wooden surface reflecting the spotlight. 3 sleek, minimalist chairs faced each other in the center. Between them, a small glass table held bottles of water, their labels turned discreetly away from view. Slim and unobtrusive microphones were ready, promising to carry every word to the farthest corners of the hall. Poised and confident, Jade Johnson adjusted her seat as she prepared to begin. Opposite her, Karoline Leavitt sat with an air of quiet composure, her hands resting lightly on her lap. Cameras stood at attention around them, their red recording lights flickering like steady flames. A massive screen behind the stage loomed overhead, ready to project their faces in crisp, undeniable clarity to the audience beyond. The crowd went silent as the stage lights brightened, signaling the start. The room was completely still. Jade smiled and leaned forward, her voice clear and steady. "Welcome to the most captivating interview you will ever experience." She threw her hands in the air, and the audience roared in loud claps. She looked at the heads of people, from span to span, smiling at her level of influence. She could tell that there were not too many hosts who could pull such a stunt. Did the people come because she was the one hosting, or did they come to listen to Karoline? She shrugged. No host would like to admit they were only popular because they sang someone else's praises. She frowned at the thought and quickly feigned a smile on her face. She felt a bit tense, but she knew the game. The one to laugh last always laughed best. All she had to do was play her cards carefully. Catherine may have thought it was just an interview, but Jade saw it as a means to scale up her career. If she could bring down the youngest White House press secretary, it would make her revered and open more deals and contracts for her. She had been practicing this for a long time, and all she had to do was lie low till her prey was near enough for a strike. It would look harmless at first until the venom got into her blood. The claps began to die down as the audience looked at 2 young women, sitting and staring at themselves in what appeared like a battle, but not with swords, but with words. History had it that they had finished at the same high school. While Jade was drawn to passing the grades, Karoline was more interested in pursuing her other interests, like journaling and writing, than just the usual subjects. Some felt Jade had pulled up the interview out of intense envy and jealousy, while others believed it was more like a reunion, but almost everyone knew it would not be a friendly encounter. They both had smiles on their faces, but you did not need to be a sorcerer to tell that their smiles were only to make things less tense. Jade turned her gaze for the first time at Karoline since the light beamed on both of them. "Karoline," she started, "can we begin?" Karoline nodded, and the crowd roared into different groans, which showed their agreement to begin, many of them at the edge of their seats. To begin with, Jade Johnson started by staring at the hungry crowd. "Let us meet you. Beyond the titles and names you have earned for yourself, who are you? We don't want to meet the superhero you. We want the real you." Karoline Leavitt smiled at the question, a quiet moment stretching between them as she considered her response. The titles and the accomplishments were easy to recite. However, the real her? That required something deeper. She exhaled softly and leaned slightly forward. "Well, if we strip away the titles, the accolades, and the expectations, you would find someone who is, at her core, deeply driven by conviction. I'm someone who believes in standing firm, even when the ground shakes beneath me. I was raised in a small town where hard work wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. My parents taught me that integrity isn't what you do when people are watching, it's who you are when no one is." She glanced toward the audience, then back to Jade. "I'm fiercely loyal to the people I love, sometimes to a fault. I value honest conversations, even the difficult ones. While my public persona may seem polished, I have moments of doubt like anyone else. But what keeps me moving forward is my belief that our purpose isn't found in comfort, it's found in challenge." A small smile touched her lips. "So beyond the titles?" I'm someone who refuses to settle. I wake up every day asking, how can I be better than I was yesterday? And I suppose, if you want to know me, that's where you'll find the answer. A thunderous applause erupted, shaking the very air in the hall. It was obvious that her response caught Jade off balance, who thought the only thing she had were degrees. Jade was not convinced. She knew how to play the game. Jade allowed the applause to come down before staring at Karoline in feigned amusement. That is so brilliant. I mean, no one would have expected such a deep response from you, especially from your frail look on the outside. Jade expected a response from Karoline, who just smiled like nothing happened. A part of the audience murmured at her silence, and when Jade confirmed that she would not say anything else, she shrugged and looked at the audience. When you don't know what to say sometimes, it is better to say nothing. She smiled at herself and looked up at Karoline. Some critics say you're only in this position because of your loyalty to Trump, not your qualifications. How do you respond to claims that you're inexperienced and unqualified for such a high-ranking role? She frowned and looked straight ahead. I completely reject that notion. My qualifications speak for themselves. I have dedicated my career to fighting for the principles I believe in, conservative values, America First policies, and the rights of hardworking Americans. My experience in political communications, policy advocacy, and working closely with leaders at the highest levels has prepared me to take on this role effectively. I am not here by chance. I worked my way all up. She paused and continued. Critics who claim I'm here solely because of my loyalty to President Trump ignore that I have proven my capabilities through years of dedicated work. Loyalty is important in politics. Just as in any leadership structure, it does not replace competence, strategy, and results. If my record didn't demonstrate effectiveness, I wouldn't be in this position. My focus is not on appeasing critics, but on delivering real results for the American people. My record, dedication, and ability to execute will prove that I am more than qualified for this role. As you can tell, my record speaks volumes, accompanied by my achievements. The audience celebrated her response with side discussions. Jade picked up interest in her response. Are you saying there was no level of favoritism from Donald Trump to you? You did not know him before, or he did not have a personal interest in you? Some of the audience roared in questions. It looked like it was unfair for her to say that. Karoline's face was straight, as though she was not bothered by the uproar it appeared she had caused. She cleared her throat and resumed. My statement did not depict that Donald Trump had no personal interest in me. You really cannot choose someone you do not like as your secretary. He did like me, but I am saying it was not only based on his preference for me that I am in my current position. Without certain qualifications and accomplishments, I wouldn't be anywhere close to him. Talk more of being liked by him. My expertise positioned me well for the job I earned, and I believe it is quite simple to understand. Some of the audience leaped to their feet, unable to contain their exhilaration, their applause echoing through the vast hall. Jade nodded and smiled. The lights went around the hall, making the audience follow their movement. Jade waited a few seconds before adjusting to her seat. Many believe this administration prioritizes propaganda over facts. Can you assure the public that you're committed to truth, or are you just a spokesperson for misinformation? Karoline leaned slightly forward, making direct eye contact and using a firm yet composed tone. You know, I find it interesting that the media constantly accuses this administration of spreading misinformation, when in reality, it's the same media that has spent years pushing false narratives and misleading the American people. She raised her hand slightly, palm up, as if emphasizing a key point. This administration stands for truth. We communicate directly with the American people because we refuse to let biased outlets twist our words. If anything, the real question should be, why do so many journalists choose activism over honest reporting? She paused briefly, then gestured with both hands for emphasis. To answer your question, yes. I am 100% committed to truth, but I won't entertain baseless accusations from those who have no problem spreading misinformation themselves. She leaned back slightly, maintaining a confident expression. It was as though the audience waited for her to finish her statement before making several outbursts. Jade was unfazed. What proof do you hold that you always speak the truth? You don't expect us to believe in you just because you said we should. A number of the audience roared in agreement. Karoline did not lean forward. She folded her arms across her chest, not revealing any smile. I cannot force you to believe in my commitment to the truth. Just as I have said before, I believe in loyalty and transparency, and while you may have doubts about me, I think you should be able to trust your president's decision. One from the audience screamed, "You may have fooled him. Who knows?" The remaining laughed, pointing fingers. Jade smiled at her. I think the audience demands more than that from you. Karoline shrugged, taking her eyes from the audience to Jade. What I just said is enough for them. Jade looked at the audience and waved a hand before the audience calmed down. She knew Karoline was trying her best to remain in the good books of her president, but she needed her to make a statement against him. That would be the best way to cause more fun and uproar. What was an interview without the fuss, anger and uproar. Karoline, Jade Johnson started, Donald Trump has been accused of spreading misinformation and attacking the press. As his press secretary, do you believe cleaning up his messes is your job? She raised her eyebrows slightly, tilted her head, and smiled confidently before responding. Let me be very clear. President Trump doesn't need me or anyone else to clean up anything. He speaks directly to the American people, and that's exactly why millions trust him more than the mainstream media. The real issue here isn't President Trump. It's the media's obsession with twisting his words and pushing a false narrative. She paused for effect before continuing. Time and time again, we've seen so-called fact-checkers get it wrong, only to quietly correct themselves after the damage is done. So no, my job isn't to fix anything. My job is to ensure that the truth is heard, unfiltered, and unspun, something the media seems to struggle with these days. Jade waited for the audience's response, but replied after getting none. The media cannot cook up lies altogether. They all must have had some source of information that validated their claims. The first thing Karoline did was to scoff. Then she placed the edge of her palm on her lips, trying to hide her smile. Jade, she replied, then turned to the audience. You all know what the media is all about. They do not care about building up false images and data to get the people something amusing and interesting. They are after the catchy headlines, the stunning views and all that, not the truth. You only stand in their favor because you are not yet prominent enough to pull down. The moment they see you making some real waves, trust me, they will come for you. And when they do, I hope you are strong enough to not crumble. Hands flew to mouths, eyes widened, and the once settled crowd became restless. Jade Johnson's face flushed with anger. She pulled all her muscles to ensure she was still in her seat. She feigned a smile and stared intently at Karoline. You are trying to say I am not noble or prominent enough, right? Karoline shook her head disapprovingly, moving slightly forward in her seat. No, that's not what I am saying. The crowd roared in contention. Karoline tried to quiet them down. I am not pulling you down, Jade. I was just saying the media goes for the people up there. They haven't reached me either because I am not there yet. If that statement crossed you, that was not my intent. Please, don't take it out of proportion. As she ended her statement, a harsh laugh broke the silence, tinged with disbelief and defiance. Karoline studied Jade and saw she was not ready to let go. She leaned forward, observing her as she tried to comport herself. Jade smiled at Karoline, gesticulating. Some people have criticized your marriage, saying you married an older man for wealth and influence. How do you convince them they are wrong because they seem right to all of us? One man screamed, yes, and the others followed. Karoline released a smile and waited for a quiet hall before speaking. She said, it's fascinating how people who have never lived a second in my marriage seem to think they know everything about it. Jade, let's be honest, this kind of question isn't about genuine curiosity. It's about pushing a baseless narrative to undermine a strong, loving relationship simply because it doesn't fit someone else's idea of normal. She paused briefly, then continued with a calm but firm tone. I didn't marry for wealth. I didn't marry for influence. I married for love, respect, and shared values. And frankly, I don't need to convince anyone of that, because my marriage is not up for public approval. I worked myself to be the woman I am now, and I married my husband because we loved each other, believed in ourselves, and shared things in common. Those who know me and have taken the time to understand my relationship know the truth, and that's all that matters. The 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt folded her hands and shrugged. If people want to speculate, they're free to waste their time. But I'll be too busy living happily with my husband to care right by my side. Some of the audience clapped while others roared in boos. Jade calmed them down with her hand and looked at Karoline. That's so poor, she began, leaning forward. I mean, that is so bad. No one within your age group could like you. Probably because you are ugly, poor, or dirty. So you went for your father's age mate. The air crackled with excitement, voices blending into an electrified hum. One woman stood and laughed so loud, encouraging younger folks to join in her laughter. Jade Johnson had smiles all over her face. I mean, she continued, look at you. What will a girl so bright and promising as she claims to be doing with a man with few years left to be a granny? Oh, I get it. She paused and laughed again, enjoying the vying from the crowd. Maybe Karoline was no good for any man's first choice, so she had to cling to a man who had married in his 20s, given birth, lost his spouse, and needed another spouse. Talk about a second-hand vehicle. Now this was the interview. The audience roared in laughter, some hitting their laps hard while others shook their heads and laughed uncontrollably. Jade looked at Karoline and saw the intense hatred in her calm face. It took a long while to calm the roars in the hall. When Karoline thought they had ended, another began from a corner in the hall, and they raved in laughter. Jade looked at her and wiped her tears. She sighed deeply. Please, do not take it out of context. I am only concerned since you look like a lady with class. I am only wondering why you chose him. That's all. Karoline put up a gentle smile and nodded. It is all right, she responded calmly. Jade rested her back on the chair. I have noticed that you dodge tough questions and attack journalists instead of answering directly. Are you afraid of real scrutiny? Karoline paused for a while, as though she was trying to arrange her words. She cleared her throat, took a sip from the cup of water before her, and calmly adjusted herself on her seat. I find it interesting that when I challenge misleading narratives or hold the media accountable for their bias, I'm labeled as dodging questions or attacking journalists. The reality is that I answer tough questions every day. I just refuse to accept dishonest framing or politically motivated attacks disguised as journalism. Scrutiny is part of my job, and I welcome it. What I won't do, however, is entertain bad faith questions designed to push a predetermined narrative instead of seeking the truth. She took a deep breath and continued. If journalists want real answers, they should start by asking fair and fact-based questions, not loaded ones meant to create controversy, like the ones you have been asking. Karoline narrowed her eyes and leaned forward. It's truly disappointing, but not surprising that rather than focusing on meaningful issues, you've resorted to personal attacks on my marriage in an attempt to discredit me. This isn't journalism. It's character assassination disguised as an interview, and quite frankly, it's beneath any serious discussion. She wasn't done yet. If this interview was a discussion about policy, leadership, or the direction of this country, I'm happy to engage. But if the goal is to tear me down based on personal life choices that have nothing to do with my ability to do my job, then let's be honest. This is not about seeking truth. It's about manufacturing controversy, and I won't waste my time entertaining it. The right question we should ask is why interviewers lack the requisite intelligence to maturely hold a conversation without hurling mean words at those invited for the interview. Everywhere was quiet, and Karoline responded, "An interview should be educative and explore different themes, including secrets and the motives behind some operations happening in the country that you need clarity on, but it is clear that it is not your priority." She gesticulated with her hands as she stood up. "You only enjoy the thrill and fun you catch by demeaning the lives of others outside, but if we are to carefully scrutinize yours, none of the people sitting here will remain. You have a life that no one will be proud of, not even a dead man. But you are here scrutinizing others because you like it." Then she turned to the audience. "And they like it. I wish," she continued, walking on the podium, "we could pick you all up one by one and learn why you are in your 6th marriage, why your business crumbled last year, or why you are yet to be married. Don't sit and laugh because you are entertained. Think about your life. It needs a change. And you, Jade Johnson," she looked sternly into her eyes, "find something profitable to do and stop peering into the lives of changemakers." With that, Karoline left the hall in complete silence. What do you think about Karolina's firm response to Jade? Have you ever had to face such a brutal interview? Let us know in the comments. If this video was insightful, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen. See you next time.